Okay, some of the points from the life sketch of Sri Ravindranath Tagore. He had the topics. I'm just dealing with the headings that he has given here. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Ravindranath Tagore was born and brought up at Damodar-Deep, Mamgachi. Sri Narayani Devi, her father's, no, Srivasa's wife was Malini Devi. Her father's house was there. And Narayani, what is this? Can you check if the sound is okay? So I just check. I can check through there. Sound is okay there? How do I find out? I find out from here.
உங்களுக்கு லிங்க் அனுப்புறேன். நீங்க அந்த லிங்க்ல வந்து டவுன்லோட் ஆர்டர் பண்ணிக்கலாம். சரியா?
How do I?
Speaking is moving. No problem. Mic is working as well.
It's working as well. Okay. Fine. Ravindranath Tagore does not refer to his father's name. He served Dornitai deities. He had a disciple named Sri Ram Hari at a place called Dendur. The family of his maternal uncle were exclusive devotees of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So therefore, Thakur Vrindavan Das has only identified himself with in relationship with them. Vrindavan Thakur was extremely proficient in the scriptures that propound devotional service. The community of Smartas, those who follow the non-devotionals with the scriptures, they were opposed to the Vaishnava community, and they were incensed by Vrindavan Thakur. But they were inconsistent in their criticisms pertaining to him. Vrindavan Thakur was a guardian of the propaganda of pure devotion service. He was also very neutral, and he was very fond of sticking to the truth. Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat talks about the social status of his time on the basis of the conclusions of pure devotion service. He was exclusively fixed on the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. The Prakrita Sahajiyas, they are very proud. They are materialistic enjoyers. The materialistic literators, those who are fond of literature, all of these people are, their consideration is empirical. And he finally discussed about Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat as literary work. Then he provided Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's tribute to Vrindavan Thakur. Then we come to the introduction. But wait, I must open the introduction. Today we are scheduled to complete this introduction. That is, we are on page 15. Introduction goes up to page 22, 7 pages. Okay, while inquiring into the absolute truth, we cannot remain steady in one conclusion after hearing the various opposing statements of the many acharyas, sages, and scholars. Because they, even though they may be authentic perceivers of the absolute truth, they will emphasize different things according to Krishna's will, and considering the subject matter, considering the audience also. So just by hearing these various statements, one cannot steadily come to, one cannot at least easily come to a conclusion. Considering the weakness of the audience, the instructing acharya often does not have the opportunity to disclose many subjects. Some of them, however, accept parts of all subjects and thus cultivate the path of maryada, or awe and veneration. Hence, they neglect to cultivate the path of madhurya, or sweetness. See, the path of maryada refers to the path of realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Narayana, the object of reverential worship. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati points out that the acharyas who are instructing their students, considering that the audience is not strong enough spiritually to understand the nature of Krishna's sweetness, they speak about Krishna's opulence. When the absolute truth mercifully exhibits a portion of his supreme opulence in the form of omnipotency, that most people, being unable to understand this feature, fall into mundane conceptions. The platform of Madhurya is situated higher than that of Aishwarya, those who cannot understand this are to be considered followers of the path of Maryada. Maryada means Vaidhi Bhakti. I think it's easier to understand like this. But when the absolute truth, it means etiquette, conduct, rules, regulations. In Gaudiya Vaishnava language, we have Vidhi Bhakti and Raga Bhakti. In the Vallabhacharya Sampradaya, they refer to Maryada Bhakti and Pushti. Maryada Marga and Pushti Marga. Pushti meaning that which is nourished by the soul directly. This is what we call Raganuga Bhakti. Maryada Purushottam is Lord Ramachandra. Maryada means the path of following the regulations and just the reason for your engagement in Bhakti Yoga is because you are supposed to follow these rules and regulations. It's based on that knowledge. Whereas Pushti or rather Raga Bhakti is you are following the same set of rules and regulations, but you're attracted by that object of devotion. So he's attracting you to do the same. They're not doing something different. They both do the same thing, but the cause is different. But when the absolute truth, who is the basis of Aishwarya and Madhurya, exhibits his Audarya or magnanimous pastimes, then non-duplicitous persons who are freed from material conceptions and devoid of considerations of enjoyment and renunciation not only understand the differences between Madhurya, Aishwarya and Audarya pastimes and become self-realized, but in their constitutional position and through their pure vision, they also see the eternal variegated pastimes of the Lord. Definitely this translation is much easier to understand than the original Bengali. See, there are three features. In Annaya Sutra, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he brings up this. That absolute truth. Let's see if I get it. Oh, but let me see if I have it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, his features are of three types: Audarya, Madhurya, and Aishwarya. So basically, there are three features. It is not that he only has two features, Aishwarya and Madhurya. He's got actually three features: Aishwarya, Madhurya, and Audarya. Aishwarya means his opulence. No. What sort of opulence? The sort of opulence when one is completely affected by his opulence in spiritual realization, then one out of fear wants to serve him. This is actually what goes on in Vaikuntha. They serve the Supreme Power. It is not that they are frightened because otherwise they'll be punished by Maya and so on. But they do have a fear. They fear of disobeying him and so on. This is pure Dasya Bhakti. Then there is Madhurya, which is exhibited in Goloka Vrindavan by Lord Krishna. Then there is Audarya, exhibited by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then there are different scriptural evidences as provided by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So three features of the Supreme Personality of God: Aishwarya, Madhurya, and Audarya. So when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who exhibits all these three, specifically when he descends and primarily exhibits Audarya, then there are persons who can understand all these three features, but they need to have some eligibility. They have to be non-duplicitous. They have to be freed from materialistic misconceptions of the Supreme Lord. They should be freed from desires for enjoying this world. They should also be freed from desires to be renounced from this world. Then they can understand the difference between these three different types of pastimes that the Lord exhibits. Then they become self-realized, and more than that, they can also realize their swarupa. Self-realized here simply means that they realize that they are different from their material bodies, but they can also realize their swarupa, and they can perceive the Supreme Lord's Nitya Leela. There is a lack of audarya in the considerations of bondage and freedom that ordinary literatures and those who teach them present to those who are desirous of self-realization. There are ordinary literatures, and there are literatures which present information about how to become self-realized. But there is no consideration that all of this should be given to everyone possible. Audarya means that the Supreme Lord wants to give everything that he has to everyone possible, and try as much as possible to make the unqualified qualified. This is Audarya. Therefore, we realize the necessity of studying the Mahakavya, or great poetic work named Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, written in ancient Bengali language. If one relishes a fraction of the magnanimity displayed by the Supreme Lord while preaching the Aishwarya and Madhurya pastimes of the Lord, in order to benefit those who are wandering throughout the universe, he will undoubtedly become glorious. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he preaches about the Supreme Lord's Aishwarya and Madhurya pastimes. Why does he do it? He does it because he wants to benefit everyone, all of us, conditioned souls. From the big point of view, generally we look at each other only within our particular lifetime. But from the big point of view, we are simply moving from one body to another, to another, to another. So this is the perspective that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduces in Chaitanya Charitamrita also. This is how he talks. They talk as if it's the most normal thing to talk about. So when we have some problems in our childhood or youth, we think about these things for whole life. But then from an associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like Prabhupada, this is this life. In the last life you had that problem, last life before that life you had that problem. So they're looking from the multi-lifetime perspective. So this expression is commonly used, wandering throughout the universe, Brahmanda Brahman, traveling within the universe. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does this. If we understand his audarya, his magnanimity, then we will certainly become glorious. Glorious in our position as his eternal servants and servants of his eternal devotees. Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat is the most ancient Bengali literature. Since Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat is the most ancient Bengali literature, the author has for some time been addressed as Adi Kavi, or the original poet. Before him, Sri Lochan Das Thakur has written a Bengali Panchali poem named Sri Chaitanya Mangal. What is a Panchali poem? How to explain this? It is one type of Bengali poetry. Even before that, Sri Gunaraj Khan or Maladhar Basu composed another book in Bengali named Sri Krishna Vijay, which describes the pastimes of Lord Krishna. That Sri Krishna Vijay, that's also a very nice book. Yeah.
It is. Why is saying that this is third book, first Kavya?
Wait, he will come to that now. So, he's simply saying that there are some people who consider that Chaitanya Bhagavat to be the first poem in Bengali. So he's pointing out that no, actually before him there was Chaitanya Mangal of Lochan Das. Before that there was Sri Krishna Vijay of Gunaraj Khan, which describes the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Chaitanya Mangal, as I mentioned already, is by Shri Lochan Das Thakur, where he has paraphrased in Bengali Murari Gupta's Sanskrit Chaitanya Charita. There is a little bit of additional content in Chaitanya Mangal. There's a little bit of additional content, but mainly it is just taken from Murari Gupta's Sanskrit book. Shri Krishna Vijay. This was a book that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very much liked. It is a paraphrase of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhaktivinoda Thakur really liked this book very much. I think so. There is. But it's published. Somebody published it, and I think that it should be checked. But even then, I think it's quite good. It's quite good. These books, if you learn Bengali and you read these books, very much useful. Learning a language is only useful as long as you can derive the maximum spiritual benefit from it. Of course, these are old Bengali. This Chaitanya Bhagavat itself is one layer of Bengali before Chaitanya Charitamrita Bengali. Chaitanya Charitamrita is a mixture of Sanskrit, Hindi at that time. There may be bits and pieces of Persian, Arabic, all that mixed. And there is Bengali also mixed. But Chaitanya Bhagavat is old Bengali. You'll find words like Tan. In today's Bengali, it is Tan, but it is Tan. Then I think that Lochan Das Thakur is going one level earlier to that, and Shri Krishna Vijay is even before that. Therefore, this is one of my biggest complaints. If you go to places like in South India, they'll show you ancient Tamil books. And even today, they print the Tamil poetry. And below that, they give a modern Tamil translation of that ancient Tamil poetry. If you go to Karnataka, also you'll find old some Kannada, something. Everybody does that. Only in Bengali, they don't do that. They expect you to miraculously understand, 600-year-old Bengali text, even though they sing it very nicely. They'll talk about it, they'll glorify it, they'll buy the book, they'll keep it, they'll worship it, everything they'll do, they'll not read and understand. It will be very useful if that is done. Therefore, this book is the third book, yet first kavya written in Bengali language. Actually, literally what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is saying is, in mature Bengali language, this is the first book. This book is neither a mundane kavya nor the fulfiller of the literator's desires. Unless the community of short-sighted literators who are full of indiscretion become completely qualified to understand the purport of the descriptions in this book, they will not be able to respect this book. This is a simple fact. If you don't take to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, you will not be able to understand this. Not only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Once I remember we were doing book distribution in a place called Jadavpur University in Calcutta. That's one of the universities. And we went into the student hostels and we see. So then there was one, we entered into the PG section, postgraduate section. So there was one man who called me into his room and he said, "Oh, very nice to see that you're selling Bhagavad Gita as it is. I'll show you one book which I am studying currently." And he showed me Ujjwala Neelamani. And he's sitting and doing some psychological study about Ujjwala Neelamani and female psychology, some comparative contrast study, something to do. I told him, "You're wasting your time." What are you doing? You're wasting your time. You have to first of all obey Rupa Goswami. You don't obey Rupa Goswami, you won't understand head or tail of all these things. So, but they study from a different perspective. They study from the perspective of Sanskrit ornamentation. There is something called ornamentation, literary ornamentation. It's a big field in Sanskrit literature. So they study Rupa Goswami from that perspective. Same thing here. I'm very sure that, and later on I found out that in some of the universities they study Chaitanya Charitamrita, and predictably it's all Gopi Katha and Ramananda conversation with Ramananda, these kind of things. They study. They're not going to study Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings to Prakashananda Saraswati. They're definitely not going to get into things like that. The Bengali community generally considers Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be a very nice, great Vaishnava that some sentimental Bengalis believe to be an incarnation of Krishna. And he was a very interesting person. He was always singing and dancing. This is how they think. There are some people who think that Chaitanya path, Shankara path. You should follow. When it comes to philosophy, nobody can beat Shankaracharya because it's impossible to understand. So it must be the greatest. So it must be Shankara's philosophy. But when it comes to the actual practice, then you should sing and dance Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, and you should follow Chaitanya. So that idea came. Even up to 1920s, 1930s, you could come across many Gaudiya Vaishnavas who would freely talk about Shankaracharya's philosophy as if it's fully okay. Problem was that as long as their eyes are blinded by the darkness of ignorance, those who are wise will continue to doubt the awakening of good fortune. Due to a lack of appreciation for the devotional service of the Lord, a person will develop a taste for self-worship. And material enjoyment, which will obstruct his path toward perfection. Self-worship, Ahangrahopasana. There's a method of worshipping the absolute truth as being identical with oneself. You'll find it in the Upanishads, many, many places. So unless one has Shraddha, the exact expression that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur uses is Shraddha. Unless one develops Shraddha, Shraddha means faith, interest, respect. All of this is indicated by that one expression. Appreciation also. So unless one has Shraddha for Bhakti, one will definitely develop Shraddha for either enjoyment, material enjoyment, or in the name of spirituality, you will enter into this kind of self-worship, considering oneself to be the absolute truth, which will obstruct his path toward perfection.
You said this Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they were following or they were discussing Shankaracharya's philosophy.
Plenty.
So
I think this is why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took this position of repeatedly condemning Maya.
Are there Shankaracharya's followers like Mayavadis trying to imitate Mahaprabhu's path?
Yeah, they're very much like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu nowadays. Yeah. A lot of people. Shankara, first of all, the Shankara line has become severely weak because of the aggressive preaching by different Vaishnava acharyas and their followers. It is not like, you cannot imagine 1,000 years back how it was. Now Shankara thing is quite tamed down. It's come under to some degree.
So what happens to these people? They chant Hare Krishna, chant from Mahaprabhu, but they also practice, also they speak about Shankaracharya's philosophy. They look like they don't understand any head to tail out of them. But something they are discussing, speculating, but I think they're chanting Hare Krishna.
Even during in Chaitanya Charitamrita comes, no, some of them went to Saurabh Damodar and said, let's study Sharidika Bhashya, please give us permission. So it looks like there's some, he is Lord Shiva, so definitely very attractive. Yeah. Holy name of Ram, yeah. He was impersonal. But Prabhupada says he was a Ramanandi, something like that. Yeah, he's an impersonalist, but Ramanandi, he's a Ramanandi, something like that. Doesn't appear to be a Shankara follower. There are different types of impersonalists, to different degrees of impersonalism. That's another thing. Some of them want to merge into the Lord's body. It's called Ishvara Sayajya. We don't want Brahma Sayajya, Ishvara Sayajya. What happens to these people? First of all, if you accept Mayavada impersonalism, you go to hell. You go to hell while chanting Hare Krishna. It's some kind of perverted chant. But Prabhupada also said that he knew one officially Mayavadi sannyasi who privately accepted that actually the supreme absolute truth is Radha Krishna, because he had studied Jiva Goswami's books. But because he is officially a big guru, sannyasi guru, so he cannot kind of stuck. Very difficult, no? You cannot give up everything and go. It's very difficult. I think so, definitely.
The word Mayavadi is very as a negative connotation from our side.
No. Mayavadi is a proper, it's a regular expression. They use. They also call themselves Mayavadis only. Mayavada is a very dignified expression. We talk about it as if it's some bad thing. When you say you're a Mayavadi, they'll say, of course you are Mayavadi. Yeah, and then what?
I thought they called themselves something else.
No. They very openly say, Shastra teaches Mayavada. Like they were teaching. So they know what? Mayavada is coming from Shastra only. That expression is coming from Shastra. They know it, we also know it. We don't have any issues with that. Kevala Advaita is the official title. Advaita is the common title. But Mayavada is very commonly used. Mithyavada, Mayavada, Adhyasavadis, different names that are used. The non-Mayavadi impersonalists. I think after Shankaracharya came, everything got screwed up big time. There may be. Yeah, there may be. I don't know. All Mayavadis, they're all Mayavadis. Yeah.
So with Brahmavada, where is what is position of Krishna?
They accept that the absolute truth is both personal and impersonal. They are interested in impersonal realization. They imagine that the impersonal realization is superior to personal realization, but they accept the personal features to be untouched by Maya and so on.
Where is the doctor for?
It's always there. There are always people who promote it. Vasishtha, there's so many of them there. Ashtavakra, so many others. It's one of the eternal philosophies. In the material world, there are always so many. Charvaka is an eternal philosophy. Actually, later you realize that these are all eternal positions. You just snap into the grid. That's it. That's
what the idea behind that the person side,
although both of them are
not touched by mind.
No, I think that they think that when one begins sadhana, then one begins to realize. So they don't have realization of the supreme absolute truth with variety, spiritual variety. This is the only thing that they have. They contrast it against material experience. So they are just using material logic to say that this is superior to the absolute truth with variety. But from Shastra, they understand that that's also spiritual. Because Shastra is the source. You have to go with Shastra. Otherwise, you cannot say anything about the transcendent reality. So they're just using their material logic. That's why he goes on saying these people are all using their material logic to come to conclusions about that which is beyond. That is why repeatedly he's saying that.
Just like to me, you have this Mayavadi is negative connotation. There might be also the Vaishnavas.
Of course. Because you're Vaishnava. Vaishnava means you're a crackpot, basically. That's what they think. They really think like that. And in fact, generally they think that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers are all, they don't know philosophy, nothing. Yeah, nothing. I myself, I was told, I was in, not even some Mayavadi. This is Vaishnava people. Both Ramanuja people and Madhva people at different times. one person told me that you come to Melkote and study because you people are good in singing and dancing, but you should know about whom you're worshiping. So you come to Melkote, become my student. I'll take care of you. I'll train you. Then you can go and lead others. So you become the leader, I become your leader. Then in the Ramanuja group, one person told me that, yes, he's very nice. You're all singing and dancing. Very nice. Very, very good. But, at least one or two persons, they should use their brain and they should study. So commonly they think, okay, you do all these things, then next lifetime you will be born in our line and then you'll study. Commonly they say that. Huh? But Muslims don't believe in reincarnation.
No. He said in Saudi Arabia, standing, he said, you do this, next time you'll be born as Muslims.
If you know his name,
Actually,
so he believes in reincarnation. Good. You should have immediately told him that you accept reincarnation. That's coming from us. If one considers himself a liberated pure servant of Krishna, he will certainly engage in the service of Sri Chaitanya. Therefore, unless one takes shelter of the lotus feet of the liberated devotees of Gaura, one cannot enter into the depths of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavatam. As a result, the living entities are unable to hear about the names, forms, qualities, pastimes, and associates of Gaura. Srila Thakur Vrindavan Das has been accepted as Sri Vyasa and one of the frontline acharyas of Gaur Bhakti by his follower, Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Therefore, if the residents of this world desire to go to the spiritual abode, they should first take shelter of the Supreme Lord in his Audharya feature. The statements of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, written by the soothing hands of Sri Vrindavan Das, will certainly favor such people with fulfillment of their desired goal. So the idea is that first we should take shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and obey his instructions and meditate on him. And then Radha Krishna will be revealed to us. This is one method. There are so many methods of making spiritual progress as taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers, authentic. But from the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, actually from the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the primary consideration was which method or methods cannot be abused by the majority. So therefore, you will find particularly certain things are being promoted. And certain other processes, even though they are bona fide, considering the dangers involved in following them, they are criticized. That's all. Like Prabhupada also says, in Science of Self-Realization, there are so many pathways like yoga, they're all bona fide. But the doctor will prescribe a particular medicine considering what is beneficial for the patient. There may be other medicines in the pharmacy, but he will not prescribe that and he will prevent the patient from taking those medicines. Considering the patient. The patient cannot follow that, means you will not prescribe it. So this particular method, this has been there from Lord Chaitanya's time. This particular method of first focusing on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then gradually coming upon realization of Radha Krishna. Gauranga bolite hobe, pulaka sharir, hari hari bolite naine bhaveni, ar kabe nitai chandir karuna hoibe, samsar vasana ma kabe tuchhobe, vishay chadiya Shuddha hobe mon, tabe hum haribo Shri Vrindavan. And then Rupa Raghunath Pate hoibe akuti, tabe hum bujabo Shri Jugala Priti. So you can see that. So it was there from Narottam Das Thakur's time. Narottam Das's prayers were authorized by Jiva Goswami also. So it must have, it's coming from Lord Chaitanya's time. That much we can clearly understand. Though this work of Srila Thakur Vrindavan is so simple that even less intelligent persons can make their lives glorious by understanding the highest conclusions of devotional service and seeing the wonderful beauty of the liberated pure Vaishnavas of this visible world who renounce all forms of liberation, including Salokya and Sashti, living on the same planet as the Lord and having the same opulence as the Lord. There is no doubt that the narrow-mindedness of those whose only assets are aversion to the Lord and his devotees for the Paramahamsa Vaishnavas are situated on the topmost platform in this world will continue forever. In other words, just like we are trying to progress towards Krishna, and we are trying to help each other, whoever is interested to come in, and we are trying to serve those who are more advanced than us. That's one track. But in the material world, there are those who are going down also. So those people will always remain. All these different streams will remain. It's not that the whole world, like the Christians think, everything will be at one point, the day of judgment will come, everything is closed, and then God will simply judge you. Thou shalt go above, thou shalt go below, and so on. Not like that. So it goes on. For everyone, life goes on.
What about the first time of Vasudeva Mahaprabhu? Mahaprabhu said that Vasudeva desired that, okay, give me the sinful actions of all the living beings and let me go to them, let them get delivered.
And then Lord Chaitanya, he just laughed and he said,
yeah. So, this particular Brahman got delivered. So all the set, the whole set of living beings got delivered, the new set came.
How can, in Lord Chaitanya's teachings, each living entity has to individually hanker for it and attain it. Everybody will get an opportunity, but every living entity has to individually hanker for it. Is my understanding as of now.
But you said Mukta, she did not get personal liberation.
Yeah.
So she did not have.
No, but she wanted to serve the Lord by feeding her breast milk. No? There was some service attitude there. Mixed with the desire to kill him. Mixed with the desire to kill him. But there are two different things. It looks like she also had a desire to. I think Krishna only sees that. It's amazing how he can see only that. I don't think anybody trying to rob our house and when the water is leaking from the mineral water, he closes that and then he comes to rob the house and we say, wow, you didn't want the water to be, and you put a garland on it and you donate some money for it. You don't do things like that. You're so kind. Those who will be faithful to the subject matter of this book written by Sri Thakur Vrindavan can, by giving up mundane knowledge and weak arguments, enter into the kingdom of devotion service and eternally engage in serving the Audarya pastimes of Sri Rajendra. Mosquitoes are coming from that.
No, the gaps are there. It's just magic.
No. This door is open. Mosquitoes. You should have some or something. You should have something by which the mosquitoes go.
Yes,
Thank you very much. You're talking just like him.
it's very lovely. It's very lovely.
You're miserable. You should put a. Those who will be faithful to the subject matter of this book written by Sri Thakur Vrindavan can, by giving up mundane knowledge and weak arguments, enter into the kingdom of devotion service and eternally engage in serving the Audarya pastimes of Sri Rajendrananda, who is the reservoir of all transcendental mellows. In this way, they will achieve the highest benediction and eternally remain absorbed in the pastimes of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. It is to be understood that those who maintain a thirst for material enjoyment due to a lack of attachment for, who have not awakened their sentiments for, who have not become attached to, and who have not developed a taste for the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya, these persons lack motivation to achieve the absolute truth, which is eternally full of knowledge and bliss. Actually, in the original Bengali, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is pointing out that those who don't have Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, Prema for the Supreme Lord, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, being bereft of the service of the Supreme Lord, they have utilized their Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti and Bhava for material enjoyment and thus created impediments in their realization of saintly qualities. As long as in their realization of saintly qualities means in their awakening of saintly qualities. As long as they continue to search for temporary material objects, this is called asat trishna, the living entities will naturally be disinclined towards the Sachidananda Lord and thus invite inauspiciousness on themselves.
I mean, I material.
Yeah, he uses exactly these expressions. See, nishtha means uninterrupted engagement in bhakti. Nishtha is uninterrupted engagement in bhakti. Okay, so then bhakti ruchi is taste for bhakti, and bhakti asakti, then bhakti bhava.
So this material.
This is material nishtha. Same word he is using. Maybe they are the exact opposite, mirror images. Because only when you give up one, then only you can go up. Could be, I don't know.
What was the lowest you said?
Of course, then what? It's experience, direct experience of material world. Because in Madhurya Kadambini, in the last portion, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur points out the hierarchy. He says how much of material ego and spiritual ego one has. He starts with that. And he takes from Shraddha to Prema. He explains, this is reduced to this much, this is increased this much, this is reduced this much, this is increased this much. He explains that. So when it becomes zero, it becomes zero only after Prema. So then this becomes 100%. Spiritual ego becomes 100%. So it definitely looks like when you progress in one, you regress in another. You cannot have both. You cannot progress in both.
It's like this in terms of the reflection.
Yeah.
The highest point and lowest point, especially. That's why they said the highest point is spiritual word is the Madhurya. And then the lowest Kama. Prema and Kama.
As a result of being faithless, such people run behind the will or the wisp. How do you explain will or the wisp? It is Akash Kusum. It is something that you cannot achieve. Being induced by their mind, which is full of desire for material enjoyment. See, as a result of being faithless, as a result of not having Shraddha, this happens. They then become averse to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya and become greedy for other objects. Seeing the hearts of such people covered with the dust of material enjoyment and liberation. Srila Thakur Vrindavan took shelter of the holy names of Lord Krishna and gave the topics of Sri Chaitanya Dev, the personification of love, to the people of this world. In this way, by playing the glorious victory drum of Sri Krishna Kirtan, he destroyed the deafness of ears that are attached to hearing material topics. This English is much better, I'm telling you.
But you can't even touch the corner of the poetic brilliance of what he's writing.
This is a long sentence it is. It took me a while to understand what he's saying, to some degree.
Like the dust of the Bhoga.
The materialistic propensities of the spirit soul who is bereft of Shreya, or ultimate benefit, are always eager to give importance to material activities. See, this is another theme of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We often spoke in the Upanishads, there is this discussion. There's a distinction between preyas and shreyas. Preyas refers to that which is immediately palatable, immediately pleasing. Shreyas refer to that which is ultimately beneficial. So the Upanishads, they repeatedly say, don't go after that which is preyas, which is pleasing. Go after that which is beneficial. Of course, by Upanishad standard, hankering for material happiness even in the next life, through the pathway of karma, varnashrama dharma, for materialistic purposes, that is also actually, it is preyas only. Anything lower than liberation is considered to be just meaninglessly pleasing, but actually it will cause great disturbance. For this reason, his moth-like mentality, which rushes towards the fire to burn himself, has taken the form of a dusty mirror. As a result, mundane desirable objects ignite the fire of desires. Due to ignorance, such materialists do not know that by awakening Chaitanya or God consciousness, the fire of desire for material enjoyment will be extinguished. If one accepts the holy names of Krishna prescribed by Sri Gaura as the topmost object, then the destroying power of the fire will be exhausted. This is another prominent teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that in order to become freed from attraction towards the material world, we should engage in bhajana kriya. The more we engage in this, then we get out of that. In the other Vedic processes, they first try to awaken Vairagya and Vidya with the idea that then eventually you can engage in bhakti. But in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's method, he pushes bhakti of the pure variety. Because if you don't engage in pure bhakti, then Vairagya Vidya will not come. If you engage in impure bhakti, then they will come, but they'll take many, many lifetimes, very, very slow. But if one engages in pure bhakti, then Vairagya Vidya will come automatically.
How is it possible for someone to have Vairagya without, I mean, I've always wondered, how do you have Vairagya if you don't have a taste for Vairagya? When you don't have higher taste, how do you have Vairagya?
No, they have a higher taste, but they don't have the highest taste. Bhakti is the highest process. They take shelter of diluted forms of bhakti. That is minimized bhakti, maximized bhakti, and exclusive bhakti. Unibhuta bhakti, Pradhanibhuta bhakti, Kevala bhakti, in Vishwanath Chakravarti's terminology. So what is commonly referred to as, say, Varnashrama dharma, karma, there you need to have a few drops of bhakti. Everybody has to engage in Vishnu bhakti. You cannot avoid that. But because it is minimized and labels are given according to what is predominant. Pradhanyata Vyapadesha Bhavanti. Labels are given according to what is predominant. It's also called Nirakshiranya. If you have a cup of water in which you put in a few drops of milk, it is water. Milky water. That's all you can say. But if there's a cup of milk with a few drops of water mixed in, then you say it is diluted milk. So labels are given according to what is predominant. So when we talk about these others, the non-devotees in Vedic civilization, we are talking about others who are still engaged in Vishnu Bhakti. It's not that they completely don't do it, but it's not the predominant factor.
The question was that I got the point, but the question was that isn't it a taste which drives Vairagya?
No, so what happens is, say I engage in the activity of karma with the desire for purification of my heart. Sometime during the day I'm giving for Vishnu Bhakti. And I'm praying to the Supreme Lord to give me purification of heart. Now most of my time is going in that karma activity, in the activity of Varnashrama dharma. When that is energized by this engagement in bhakti, then that the activity of Varnashrama dharma or karma, it produces renunciation. It gives one a taste for renunciation. But that is actually energized by bhakti. That information specially comes in Bhagavata.
So ultimately, bhakti is producing.
Yeah, but it is bhakti which is indirectly producing it, not directly. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives this example. Just like, for instance, sometimes the Supreme Lord, he accepts just like, for instance, Vamana. He becomes the younger brother of Indra. So in his pastimes, in general, Vamana behaves like the younger brother of Indra. So when there's a decision which needs to be taken, the elder brother will take the decision, that's all. And the younger brother will obey the elder brother, that's all. So he says it's like this. So bhakti has accepted a minimal position, even though bhakti is the one who is actually energizing the other processes. And it allows the practitioner to think, I am engaged in karma, it is karma which is giving the result. But it is karma which is energized by bhakti which is giving the result. The moment I stop engaging in Vishnu bhakti on a daily basis, I only engage in this, then I'll get nothing. So in that way I get purification of heart, then I become a then I engage in the process of Jnana Yoga. But in Jnana Yoga also, most of my time is going on in the Jnana activities. But some time I has to go for the Bhakti activity. So then also I develop some taste. I realize my qualitative oneness with the Supreme Lord. Some taste is coming. But that is also energized by Bhakti, only Jnana is giving that. Everywhere it happens like that. For Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, Bhagavan realization. But for Bhagavan realization, you can directly get it from Bhakti.
So then it would mean that the Vairagya produced through Bhakti will be much higher than the Vairagya that can be produced by other processes, right?
Yeah, Vairagya that directly comes from Bhakti is far superior to Vairagya that comes from Bhakti through Karma.
Yeah. But then we don't, you generally find that
Sorry?
the more Vairagya,
Yeah, Dhyan is a more
practice more Vairagya, no?
When we talk about Bhakti, we are talking about Upadeshamrita. We are talking about Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 64 qualities. We are not talking about what we are doing. We are talking of what is meant to be done. Because if we do it properly, then Madhurya Kadambini's things, everything comes. Actually, it is a fact. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, you follow Namashraya Bhakti, you will see the result. And he says, repeatedly it has been verified. Repeatedly it has been verified. And it's a fact. You increase your chanting and decrease your offenses. You can experiment and find out also whether it works or not. It definitely works. You can do the opposite also. You do any non-devotional activities, then you will forget all these things. That is also stated. So in both ways you can verify.
So what is right?
We follow Rupa Goswami's teachings as it is, properly. Then the process works.
Then the renunciation produced by the
And then everything comes.
is more powerful than India therefore.
Obviously. See, only in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line, we come across personalities like the six Goswamis. You tell me in the Shankar line, no, people are sleeping under the tree. That amount of renunciation. No, mud. Everybody's got mud, monasteries. No, our, how do you even describe, in the Ramanuja line, Madhva line, everybody there are sannyasis. Okay. But our Goswamis, and this in fact is considered to be the most normal thing that is supposed to happen to every Gaudiya Vaishnava. All of us are supposed to come to the point where we don't even, like Raghunath Das Goswami, that is standard. His life is considered the standard of a Gaudiya Vaishnava sadhaka. Raghunath Das Goswami doesn't, what he eats some food rejected by cows. So, amazing it is.
So Lord Chaitanya's followers exhibit greater Vairagya than Shankara's followers.
Greater.
I thought that,
But that is natural.
No,
But that's natural. That's called Bhavattha Virakti. That's directly coming out of Bhava Bhakti. It is not, there are 4 types of renunciation. In Chaitanya Shikshamrita Bhaktivinoda talks about it. And the 4th type is this genuine one. There are 3, there's one temporary renunciation. He says sometimes there are men who take to renunciation, but that is just because he had a quarrel with his wife or something. This example is coming from Bhakti. And therefore, time being, he develops some renunciation. So, not this kind of temporary renunciation. He talks, and then there is also some people accept renunciation because there is a much better guarantee that they will get food and they will be maintained. So, Bhaktivinoda says that's one type. Like that, there are different. But the only authentic one, he says, is this after Bhava Bhakti when you attain renunciation. Because that is unavoidable and it is natural. It is unavoidable. You cannot avoid it also yourself.
So that cannot be matched with the Shankara followers. I mean, I'm not a modern day Shankara follower this day.
As far as I understand, outrageous degree of renunciation we can see in Lord Chaitanya's true followers. Mahaprabhu Bhakta-Ganir Vairagya Pradhan. Mahaprabhu's devotees during his time, they exhibited Vairagya. And this is not some internal Vairagya, it's internal, external, both. And Mahaprabhu was most happy to see them. Jahan dekhi preet of Gaur Bhagwan. Very pleased.
When you started to be extended this topic for people. But when you see renunciation, there are heroes of every Sangha. And see Chaitanya followers. in James, without speaking, I can't imagine the kind of things which they do. So how do we compare that? How do we consider that?
No, but first of all, when it comes to renunciation, one should personally and naturally not be attracted to the objects of the senses. This is when Rupa Goswami defines each of the elements of Bhava Bhakti. When it comes to Virakti, Shanta, what is it? How is it? Virakti. So Virakti. So when it comes to Virakti, that is his renunciation. That's called Bhavatta Virakti. So there he says, naturally, when you don't have a taste for sense objects, that is the sort of renunciation we are talking about. Not that externally you're just keeping away. Naturally, you lose taste in that. In fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in Jaiva Dharma that the goal of Vaishnava Grihastha Ashram is to come to the point of Bhava Bhakti. That is the reason why in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's line, people accept Grihastha life in Vaishnavism. That is the goal. I do not know what I don't know what may be happening, but that is what is written in the syllabus.
What meant
Is meant for attaining the features of Bhava Bhakti. He says it's like a school. In fact, he says it's a Chatushpati. He says the Grihastha Ashram is a Chatushpati. It's a school. And it is to become self-realized, to attain self-realization. It's very dignified, when you read the right version of everything propounded by the authentic representatives. It is so dignified and nice. If one accepts the holy names of Krishna prescribed by Sri Gaura as the topmost object, then the destroying power of the fire will be exhausted. By the influence of Krishna Kirtan, Lord Krishna, the reservoir of transcendental mellows, appears in one's mind and reveals the futility of material attachment. If one considers that tolerating the intense rays of the sun is unnecessary, and he realizes that hearing the soothing moonshine-like holy names is the topmost activity, then he will be eternally benefited by those soothing moon rays. When a living entity is driven by nescience, then he dies. But when he is driven by his knowledge, he proceeds towards transcendence. One who considers the holy names, whose consort is this knowledge, and whose energies as non-different, can engage in chanting the holy name of Krishna and become situated as a servant of Sri Chaitanya. Okay, this is another point. We talk about knowledge, Sambandha Gyan. This is also referred to by Lord Chaitanya as Vidya Vadhu Jivanam in that expression. Vadhu means a bride. We have a bride, bridegroom, bride. And Shri Krishna's holy names, bride is that Sambandha Gyan. So knowledge about Krishna consciousness is considered the wife of the holy name of Krishna. So you also, just as we worship Radha Krishna together, this is another one of the constant themes of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. We chant Hare Krishna, we should also study about Krishna. Study Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya, because both are there. One is a husband, one is a wife. We take shelter of both together. I was pleasantly surprised to find it right here. Love of God, which destroys the three vargas, religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification, and apavarga, or liberation, has accepted the hand of moon-like knowledge. Therefore, if Chaitanya awakens in the living entity's heart, he will be empowered to hear and glorify the holy names of Krishna. This is nothing other than the assistance of Hladini Shakti. By the strength of Hladini Shakti, a devotee can see the imperfections of the six material opulences and toss in the waves of the ocean of bliss, which is the source of those opulences. And the heart of a person who drinks the nectar from the ocean of devotion service will relish his desired goal at every step. He's actually paraphrasing the first verse of Shikshashtaka. Though engaged in material enjoyment, he will forget himself as he submerges the fire of his desires for material enjoyment in the ocean of bliss. When adhirudha bhava or ecstatic symptoms such as madana and mohan meeting together and separation become the subject matter of remembrance due to chanting of the holy names. And when one realizes himself as enjoyed by the enjoyer, Krishna, then he can merge in the nectarian ocean of love for Krishna in his original constitutional form, which is devoid of all kinds of sand and dust, which means devoid of desires for enjoyment in this life, devoid of desires for enjoyment in next life, devoid of desires for liberation.
What are the 6 objects? It's 4.
No. It's just rich Aishwarya is material opulence is that. Tomorrow we should get this mosquito repellent. I don't know. Oil or spray or God knows anything. Something happened.
I think because this is open for quite some time.
We'll figure out something. Tomorrow we'll go and buy some. At that time, he becomes indifferent to the purport of the Mundaka and Shvetashvatar Upanishad verse, Anishaya Ashochati Mukhyamana, and will not run after Yushtam Yada Pashyat Tanyamesham. That is, he becomes indifferent to bondage and will not run after liberation. What is this verse? It's a very nice, interesting verse. I'll show you. What is this? Yeah, uninvited guests. Atithis.
Whether we can be so absorbed in it that we subsume the intensity of the writing.
Oh yeah, Anish, Ani, typing correctly. Ani, yeah. So Chati Mukhyaman. Wait, did I do something wrong? What did I do wrong? Correct only. Yushtam Yada Pashyata. Wait, give me. It's a nice verse. Trace it out. Ane vrikshe purusho nimagno nishaya shochati mukhyamana jushtam yada pashyatanyamesham asya mahimanam iti vita shokaha. Although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or other he turns his face to his friend who is the Lord and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. In other words, one is in bondage, one is in liberated status. So he becomes indifferent to both. Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which is the victory flag of Sri Chaitanya's servants, will be glorious in all respects. And by sitting on the throne of the heart of the living entities, engage the living entities in the variegated pastimes of Sri Vrindavan, serving Sri Rajendranandan, the reservoir of transcendental mellows. All glories to Thakur Sri Vrindavan, who has thrown the misconceptions of the sense enjoyers, fruitive workers, and mental speculators across the Pacific Ocean by presenting sweet songs about Sri Chaitanya's nectarian pastimes. From this work of Sri Thakur Vrindavan, we can understand that he who is the cause of all causes, who is the beginningless, primeval Lord Govinda, who possesses an eternal form of bliss and knowledge, can appear in the land of birth and death even though he is unborn. He appears as Sri Chaitanya and supplies love of God to the hearts of the living entities and yet remains impartial. How great a teacher is Sri Thakur Vrindavan, who has described how Sri Gausundar has taught in his childhood pastimes that the untouchable, impure clay cooking pots are equal to the dearest items of those who are engaged in sense gratification and maintaining dualities like good and bad. He also described the topics of Sri Chaitanya Dev, the ideal teacher of renunciation, concerning his mother's glorious understanding of spiritual variegatedness, which every reader should consider. This is all with reference to that pastime when Lord Chaitanya was sitting on this impure cooking pots. His mother chastised him. When one forgets the proper utility of the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, then these modes combine together and create the conception of Vivartavada, which ultimately brings one to Mayavada in the form of self-worship or Ahangraha Upasana. Vivartavada is a conception that the absolute truth has become this world. In order to deny the limitedness of material objects, those who are afflicted by the threefold miseries and the desire for liberation attack the realm of Vaikuntha by killing their individuality and ultimately taking to impersonalism. It is not uncommon for impersonalists to openly ridicule the Vaishnavas when they describe Vaikuntha from the scriptures. Wow, such a great dreamer. You like to dream a lot. You like to imagine that there's a world beyond the three modes of material nature. This is all your imagination which you are superimposing on Shastra. And you are twisting scripture in order to come out with your fantasies. They write these things. Radha Krishna and all is written things. Say Rama, Radha Krishna. They don't accept anything which disturbs their mind.
So nowhere else science demonstrates.
Why Gopal Dapan is there? Why Vishnu Paramam Padam comes in Katha Upanishad itself?
What do they say?
Immediately look Upanishad, they'll look at Shankaracharya. How did Shankaracharya interpret it? By default, they'll follow Shankaracharya. But of course, nowadays, even Radhakrishnan, he said Shankaracharya made one or two mistakes. But overall, he's correct. Overall, he's correct. Overall. It's only one or two mistakes.
Brahma Samhita is widely accepted.
No. Because there are so many scriptures like that. It's one of the Pancharatric texts. There are more than some 400 Pancharatric texts which have been identified. That manuscript we have, 5th chapter. I doubt if anybody else has. See, there are so many Pancharatric manuscripts sitting in various places all over India and maybe outside India. And nobody is interested in manuscript level research. I am quite interested to dig into these manuscripts, and because our acharyas quote so many scriptures. Madhvacharya, he only last week only I found out Madhvacharya is quoting so many Pancharatric scriptures. And according to their line, Pancharatric scriptures were taught by Lord Narayana in Satya Yuga. I thought that it is Dwapar Yuga, Satya Yuga itself. It's a large, it's thousands of texts are there. But at least 400 has been identified.
But Brahma Samhita is recovered not Bengal something. Still, there's no acceptance in South India.
They don't deny it. They don't. In fact, I saw one in the Tattvavadi line. One scholar is analyzing some Shruti text, some text from Rig Veda or something, and he is criticizing some materialistic scholarly interpretation, modern. And he takes the opportunity to also look at how the non-Vaishnava scholars, Vedic scholars, how they interpreted that. And he's pointing out that's also not proper. And then he refers to Jiva Goswami's commentary on Brahma Samhita, where Jiva Goswami refers to the same Vedic text, Rig Vedic text, and where Jiva Goswami gives an explanation. He says this is in line with Vaishnavism. I was very surprised actually. So that means they accept it. You cannot deny it. Every acharya, because it is well known that in Kali Yuga, over the centuries, a lot of scriptures have been neglected. Why? For Kurma Purana, Prabhupada says, no? This Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 9.200. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks that only 2 khandas of the Kurma Purana are now available, namely the Purva Khanda and Uttara Khanda. Sometimes it is said that the Kurma Purana contains 6,000 verses, but according to Srimad Bhagavatam, the original Kurma Purana contains 17,000 verses. So from 17,000, we only have 6,000. That means 11,000 gone hawa. So, but the manuscripts must be somewhere. Just that in winter time, people don't know what to do. They burn the manuscripts for their cooking. These kind of things have happened. So many things have happened. It's neglected. Manuscript level research is required. It will be very useful service for future generations. That one devotee, Damien, is doing. Damien Martin, he's doing. He's trying to work on Baladev Vidyabhushan, but he's also getting many other things. Some Prabodhananda Saraswati one lost book he discovered. Vishwanath Chakravarti one lost book he discovered. Some 1 or 2 books of Baladev Vidyabhushan that were lost that he recovered. Very interesting thing he's doing. But like that,
He recommends manuscripts or
manuscript, he goes to manuscript level and then from that only he publishes.
how do you either palm people?
Different, like that.
So how do you send principle?
Handwritten is handwritten, so you have to
Somebody
separate.
to say this is product. How do you authenticate it?
In the academic world, they check for, take a person like Baladev Vidyabhushan. Some books are like Prameya Ratnavali, Govinda Bhashya. They are found all over India. Very popular. Siddhanta Ratna, that's also no. Siddhanta Darpana, that's also no. So when they notice these are popular, then they understand his writing style. So they are aware of that. Also, at the end, like Prabhupada says, thus ends. This is the Iti Vakya. So colophon. Colophon usually identifies who wrote what. So that's how they check. Sometimes, of course, there are books where that Iti Vakya is not there, or the last page is just lost. These kind of things happen, very common. Then they check whether it has been properly matched or not. Sometimes people add things, they subtract things, all kinds of craziness happens. That is why many copies need to be checked. Just today itself for Valmiki Ramayana, 3rd canto, Aranyakanda, there is one chapter after chapter 56. So one of the commentators from the Madhva Sampradaya, Sri Satyadharma Tirtha, he says this chapter, it's an interpolation because it is found only in some books. Of course, at that time there were no printed books, manuscripts. It's only found in some books, but I did not find it in the original. So apparently he had some original manuscripts, to whatever degree, whatever it is original. So he says, therefore, I am not commenting on it. So till date, it's considered to be an interpolated chapter.
Among the other Vaishnavas also.
Yeah. Govinda Raja, for instance, in 1 or 2 places, he does not recognize certain interpolated chapters as being there at all. What is the purpose of interpolation? You write a book, I don't like everything you write in that, so I insert one thing into it. Or by mistake, it could be added also. That's so many things now. You write something, he writes something else, and then some Muslims come to attack. So all the manuscripts are thrown away here. Then somebody else after 200 years gets them, and then he tries to put them together. And by mistake, he takes some other page and adds it to it. Then some third party looks and he says, no, the same person, how we can write with 2 different handwriting? May not be the same, but this part appears to be similar to that. So this must be written together by the same person. And then, they do all kinds of things. Bori edition.
We used almost 5,000 of manuscripts, different manuscripts.
Yeah.
And then they came up with.
And still it's a big mistake.
It's left out from.
There's so many things happen. Draupadi, Vastra.
So like he left out some manuscripts or
Who?
Deliberately did not include some answer.
Who?
Buri.
Buri is a Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute.
Not here, I mean, the institute.
No, they were also thinking about textual. You have to think about various layers. They have this. They're all totally. The people who were doing that, they were all trained in Germany and other places, and they wanted to do what they did for the Greek works. So they came back to India fully brainwashed with all these ideas, and therefore they don't believe the Mahabharata is written by one person. They don't just Ramayana. They say it's a national epic of India. They don't believe that it's written by a single person, Valmiki. Mukhyanti Yatsurayaha. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has translated it to mean that Tene Brahma Krita Ya Adi Kavaye. The Supreme Lord, he gives Shabda Brahma to Adi Kavi, Lord Brahma. And that Vedic knowledge is a source of bewilderment to all the other people. Mukhyanti Yatsurayaha.
Yeah, 1.1.1 compares the deities lamb, sun, fruit, and moving
Bhagavatam. There's only one book. Imagine if one book itself is can be bewildering. Then so many Vedic literature. Academic scholars are completely. I cannot describe the degree to which they are bewildered about a single book like Valmiki Ramayana. How it can talk so much about Dharma and how Valmiki can give so much focus in the first 6 cantos of Ram's life. And in the last canto, he suddenly is talking about, he's Vishnu, he's this, he's that, and No, he could not have written the last canto. Even the first canto, he didn't write it. Then who wrote it? God knows. Somebody else wrote it. All these Vaishnavas might have written it. He just cannot, he's so bewildered. What to speak of when you tell them that Ravana kidnapped a Maya Sita?
Do you know the birth date of Arjuna?
Not yet.
One person, one devotees are doing these solutions, and one person gives it. Do you know the birth date of Krishna and Arjuna? It's like for Krishna and Janmashtami. Arjuna don't know. Remember the next way. Or fourth chapter it said, Bahuni me Vetitani Janmani Tava Arjuna. So Krishna appeared in month of May, Bahuni me. And Arjuna is Arjuna. 4th June.
This was in Bangladesh.
No, in we are Bombay somewhere.
This is the proper medicine for their foolishness. The signs that Shri Shachinandan, the object of Vatsalya Rasa, has inspired his mother to speak, destroys the modes of passion and ignorance and suggests the worship of the son of Vasudeva, who is the personification of pure goodness, and proves that the ingredients for the worship of Vasudeva Nandan cannot be accepted as in the same class as those objects that are not offerable to the Lord, is also found in this book. In order to demonstrate that material knowledge and material position is insignificant, Sri Gaur Sundar, after returning from Gaya, taught his students at the house of Purushottam Sanjay that from the intellectual point of view, every word is related to Krishna and meant for revealing Krishna. This is not some silly teaching. It is not some funny devotional teaching. Actually, Madhvacharya in one of his books, very strongly he writes, strictly speaking, every sound is ultimately referring to the Supreme Lord. It is stated in the scriptures. It's not this, Lord Chaitanya is not just teaching something.
Prabhupada also brings it up to talk. Dr. James talk.
Everything is ultimately. This teaching of Gaur Sundar simply proves that he is the Swayam Rupa, or original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the topmost summit of knowledge possessed by people from the mundane educational institutions is not equal to even a farthing of the writings of Sri Vrindavan Das concerning the topics of how Sri Gaur Sundar defeated the arguments of the great, learned, inquisitive persons who were maddened with mundane knowledge. His writings will check the influence of the temporary knowledge of this entire universe. If the adeptness and uselessness of fruitive activities, as well as the highest of all mundane moralities, were compared with love of Krishna, their value would be equal to a worthless coin. No sane person can argue this point, Sri Chaitanya Dev has neither transgressed any social moralities nor made any favorable arrangement to oppose or destroy such social moralities by false argument. Never opposed the injunctions of the Vedas or the Smritis. So this is something very important, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he highlighted this a lot, because during his time, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, he often saw the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. They were in jail as criminals, committed many criminal activities, and these kind of things were not uncommon. The Gaudiya Vaishnava community was more or less a mess. In fact, in the 1800s, movies were not yet there, but there were dramas. And in the drama, in the Bengali dramas, you have a Nayak, hero, Naika, heroine, or somebody playing that role. Then you have a Vidushak, you have a joker. And the joker is generally an idiot, some foolish man. And most of the time he was a Gaudiya Vaishnava. This is how they portrayed. He's a crazy fellow. All these Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they are crazy people. Good fun of things. So that is one reason why Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he strove very hard to go back to the source. His whole idea was go back to the source. Let's go back to the source. Who's the source of Gaudiya Vaishnavism? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Look at the authentic biographies. Look at Chaitanya Bhagavad, look at Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita highlights Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a Vaishnava Acharya. How he behaves as a Vaishnava Acharya. So you can, when you examine that thoroughly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not tell lies, he doesn't do anything wrong. He doesn't, whatever is wrong for non-devotees, he avoids that. When he was a grihastha, he follows it. We'll see that in Chaitanya Bhagavad. He does not joke with others' wives. He doesn't, he's just proper. He's proper. He's proper. When he's sannyasi, he's strict as sannyasi. When he's a grihastha, he's strict as a grihastha. He followed everything. He never opposed these kind of things. Moreover, when he saw that these injunctions were being followed with the desire for material enjoyment, he diverted their flow towards the worship of Krishna without becoming unpopular with anyone. Hence, he is full of love. The path by which the ever-quarreling mental speculators have reached the highest peace by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya. Sri Chaitanya is non-different from the worshipful object of this devotional path. The weak arguments of the narrow-minded materialists who wish to be identified as philosophers display their ignorance regarding Krishna, because their instructions are only meant to cleanse the mentality of sense gratification in order to remove the threefold material miseries. Although the arrangements for the immediate peace of both materialistic enjoyers and renunciates appear to be very palatable, Sri Chaitanya Dev's instructions have nevertheless revealed their futility. Now, one thing that you will find very strongly amongst representative acharyas, those who represent Lord Chaitanya's teachings, is not only do they condemn adharma, anyabhilashita, they also condemn the pathway of attaining bhukti through karma. They also condemn the pathway of attaining impersonal liberation. All three they simultaneously condemn. It is not that there is no hierarchy. There is definitely a hierarchy. We accept that karma, even karma performed in order to go to the heavenly planets, is vastly superior to anyabhilashita. We accept that. And we accept that superior to that is liberation, impersonal liberation also. Okay. But from the perspective of Bhakti Yoga, Sri Ramanujacharya is described in his commentary to Yoginam Api Sarvesham, Bhagavad Gita 6.47. Krishna is saying, and amongst all the yogis, the Bhakti Yogi is the best. So Ramanujacharya is saying, and amongst all the yogis, Bhakti Yogis is the best, means higher than all these yogis is the Bhakti Yogi. So then he asked the question. Then prior to that he said, the Tapasvi is better than this one, and this one is better than this one, and this one is better than this, therefore you become a yogi. So that was a hierarchy. But in the last verse of 6th chapter, Krishna has grouped them all together and he said Bhakti Yogi is higher than all of them. So why is Krishna grouping them all together when in reality there is a hierarchy within them? So Ramanujacharya gives an example. He says, the one who has come to the platform of Jnana, his spiritual advancement is like one mustard seed. And he said the one who has come to the next higher platform, to yoga or something, that is another mustard seed. So each of them is just one mustard seed. But if you are comparing these mustard seeds to a gigantic mountain, and you're standing on top of that mountain, from that perspective, whether it is one mustard seed or two mustard seeds or three mustard seeds, it's all together one. Practically they are equal. So from the perspective of pure Bhakti Yoga, Anyabhilashita, Karma, Jnana, they are all equally worthless, even though there is a hierarchy. Rather than accepting material enjoyment and liberation, or religiosity, economic development, sense gratification and liberation as the goal of life, Shri Gaurasundar has made it known that without the service of Rajendrananda, who is the reservoir of transcendental mellows, everything else is instigated by material desires and the attractions of the illusory energy. Therefore, while offering prayers to Shri Krishna Chaitanya Dev, Shri Vasudev Sarvabhauma has said, Vairagya Vidya Nishabhakti Yoga Shikshartham Eka Purusha Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari Kripam Budhir Yastamaham Prapadye. Let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of God Shri Krishna, who is descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach his real knowledge, his devotion service, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He has descended because he is an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. Kalan nashtam bhakti yogam nijam yah pradush kartum Krishna Chaitanya nama avir bhutas tasya padara vinde gadham gadham liyatam chitta vringa. Let my consciousness, which is like a honeybee, take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has just now appeared as Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach the ancient system of devotional service to himself. This system had almost been lost due to the influence of time. It's interesting to note that Vasudeva Sarvabhauma, he was the Sabha Pandit of King Prataprudra. And during his time, there were also other Vaishnavas who were very fiercely combating Mayavad. From historical records, we know that Vyasatirtha of the Madhva, he was very much active in the kingdom of Krishna Devaraya, which is just south. Prataprudra was in charge of Kalinga, Orissa. South was this entire area, a part of Karnataka, a part of current, I think, Andhra Pradesh, a part of maybe Telangana. All of that was under Krishna Devaraya. And generally, Krishna Devaraya is considered to be the patron of Vyasatirtha. So Vyasatirtha had powerful influence. He very fiercely attacked Mayavada to an unprecedented extent. He took up all different versions of Mayavada for consideration and attacked all of them very powerfully. People are really frightened of him. So, I'm not frightened of him as a person, but considering his enormous contribution. Now, Vasudeva Sarvabhauma, who was practically his contemporary, still he was a Mayavadi. Still he was not shaken. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained, refuted Mayavad, then that completely shook him upside down. It is not that he was attracted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood and therefore emotionally, not like that. He was an intellectual. He fought also. He also argued back. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refuted him. Just through an intellectual argumentation that Lord Chaitanya, he won over Vasudeva Sarvabhauma. Vasudeva Sarvabhauma, when his name is known because he was also a teacher of Nyaya. He wrote something. So his name is known among students of Nyaya. When he became a follower of Lord Chaitanya, the entirety, the whole of Orissa, they surrendered to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It was a very big event, very, very big event. After reciting these verses, we are concluding the purpose of our introduction. Sri Chaitanya Bhagavatam is the first half of Sri Chaitanya's pastimes. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is the second half. We request all readers to attentively and impartially study Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. And after completing it, they will search.
These guys are starting from
What?
Rain. The fireflies.
We request all readers to attentively and impartially study Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. After completing it, they will certainly be eager to hear and chant the topics of Sri Chaitanya, glorified by Srila Kaviraj Goswami. By this process, a living entity will certainly achieve spiritual perfection. This is the request of this fallen soul, Akinchan, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati. Why does he say Assam? Udgam and Saila, Assam. Why they brought in Assam now?
1832.
No, I thought he was in Ooty. So it's written in Ooty.
Come on the side of maybe South India.
Yeah.
Yeah. Utkamand is Ooty only. He was in Ooty according to historical records also. Ekadashi, June 5, 1932.
The Ashad, I think they wrote in Ashad. It's in Ashad in Bengali. Ashad. Ashad, they wrote.
Okay, I'll just quickly run through his headings now. His headings are very, very interesting. I'll try my best. I cannot. While analyzing the super soul, to superimpose the defects of the external coverings of the universe after the destruction of the conception of the seer, seen, and seeing is not in line with the Shruti scriptures. Empiricists consider, what is this?
Is it the living person who
There's a
yes.
Okay, just a couple of minutes and get done. Empiricists, they present the super soul as being avyakta, unmanifest.
So coming from bottom.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Coming from bottom.
Okay, the ardent followers of Shankaracharya, they have been imitated by Western philosophers. The Shruti text, which talks about the two birds in one tree, analyzes the position of the super soul. The empiricists, they talk about Kutastha Chaitanya. How do you explain Kutastha Chaitanya? Consciousness, subjectless, objectless awareness, which is on the platform of liberation. And these are all some stupid Mayavadi concepts. It's all due to empiricism. When one analyzes the Supreme Person, then one also deals with the non-liberated condition. When one analyzes the Supreme Person, one understands the variety of spirit, matter, the controller, and so on. When one analyzes the super soul, one also deals with Artha Panchaka. Artha Panchaka means 5 topics which are meant to be studied in order to attain liberation from material existence and so on. There's a book by Bhaktivinoda in Bengali called Artha Panchaka. Artha Panchaka, 5 subjects. That's what it literally means. The Acharyas have given incomplete instructions considering the weakness weaknesses of their audiences. There are very few people who are eligible to understand the Madhurya features of the Supreme Lord. The pastimes of Audarya are engaged in by that person who is the root cause of both Aishwarya and Madhurya. He also spoke about the reason for the manifestation, the revelation of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. He is Adi Kavi, the original poet. No, sorry. The original Adi Kavi presented Sri Chaitanya Mangal. But for mature Bengali literature, the original poetry is Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. He spoke about the one who is eligible to enter into Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. And that is those who are fully surrendered to pure devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They are the ones who are eligible. Thakur Vrindavan Das is he's one of the first class acharyas teaching Gaur Bhakti. He also spoke about the unique features of the writing of Thakur Vrindavan. The author of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat has mercifully blessed the entire world, which is achaitanya, which is not conscious. The holy name of Sri Krishna, as prescribed by Lord Gauranga, is the life and soul of the young bride of spiritual knowledge, Vidya. And this Krishna Nam, it extinguishes the fire of the desire for material enjoyment and renunciation from matter. The awakening of the potency that causes one to revive one's memory for one who engages in the hearing and chanting of Sri Krishna's holy names. That when it is assisted by the spiritual potency which is combined with the essence of Kladini Shakti, that is actually the ever progressive status of a liberated soul who has taken shelter of the holy name. And then several teachings from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes come up. Thakur Vrindavan Das is a first-class teacher of the universe. You'll find very nice instances of knowledge which extends up to the limit of Srimad Bhagavatam, along with which itself is and knowledge which is the very Sahadharmini. How do you explain Sahadharmini? Who is also the dharmic wife of the holy name of Lord Krishna. We'll find it in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Two types of knowledge. Then one is the knowledge that extends up to Srimad Bhagavatam. And another is the knowledge which is the wife of the holy name of Lord Krishna. One must be theoretical knowledge, one must be realized knowledge.
One part of the word.
Sri Bhagavatavadi Vidya. There's a statement that knowledge extends up to Srimad Bhagavatam.
Knowledge extends up.
That is the final limit of knowledge.
Okay.
So that you will find in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes.
Okay.
And you'll also find that type of Vidya which is the wife of Krishna's holy name. That must be spiritual realization. If you look at his Shikshashram commentary, he'll talk about it. Why was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu filled with love? That's another topic. Sri Chaitanya Upadeshir Vaishishtya, the unique features of the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then he quoted Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's glorification of Lord Gauranga. And then he said that Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is the conclusion of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavatam. That's what we dealt with today.
Yesterday you said that Narayan was the daughter of Srivas Thakur's brother. Niece.
She was a niece.
Yeah.
Is that wrong?
No, but you said from the aspect.
She
was Thakur's brother. So, but then in the introduction, Dr. Thakur says that paternal lineage was not therefore not mentioned.
So what? She was.
Maybe the sisters.
So she's the wife of.
Look, here it is. Let's go back to this. Maybe I made a mistake. The father of Shiva's Pandit's wife, Malini Devi, lived in the village of Mamgachi. Shiva's Pandit, the beloved devotee of Lord Gauranga, had a niece named Narayani Devi. Okay, so Narayani is connected both to Shivas and Malini Devi in different ways. Narayani Devi was married to a member of Malini Devi's family. That means her husband was connected to Malini Devi. And she herself was a niece of Shivas.
Malini Devi, this is during Mamgachi. So there's the connection of Narayani Devi.
Here, Narayani Devi was married to a member of Malini Devi's family. So definitely it looks like she was connected in both ways.
Because she is a member of Malini Devi's family, that's why she is living in Mamgachi. But I think the paternity of Vrindavan Das Thakur.
Oh, Vrindavan Das Thakur is not. Although there is not much information about the paternal family of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. Since his maternal family members were staunch followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It looks like she was connected both ways.
Yeah, no, I think I got confused. Without Das Thakur's paternal lineage cannot be protected. Not Narayan.
All right. Okay. All right. So we'll stop with that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
That should pass the